Old Tom Gray here. Made me a pair of simple weld fixtures for welding inside corners and outside corners at 90 degrees on sheet metal or whatever you want. They're set up so that the weld doesn't stick to them. They hold the angle, and you can clamp in a variety of positions. There's the outside one. There's the inside one. I'll show you how I made them. So let's get started. Here's the materials. It's a bunch of leftover pieces of sheet metal and a couple of these foot pads that I had cut for a bench that I didn't make, some hardware store brackets. But the key is these are these pre-cut gussets that I got from Amazon. I think they're lasered or CNC plasmid, but they came on a little sheet and they're cut pretty accurately at 90 degrees and 45 degrees. So these are the key to make this all work. Save a lot of setup time, and everything's very accurate. Okay, so here's our base plate, and I scribed a line down the middle. And I'm going to make the inside corner fixture first. And to do that, I want two pieces of plate that are mounted like so, but not touching each other and not touching the base. So they're suspended so that when you're making a corner weld down in the gullet here, the actual weld itself isn't touching anything. That way you're concentrating your heat at the weld. So to do that, I'm also going to bias it off to one side, like so, so that when it's set up, you can clamp in space and you can hang the edge of the fixture off the edge of a bench in case you need simply to clamp it down and not be welding in the middle of a table. So that setup begins with these little connector nuts and a couple of screws. These are just 3/8 connector nuts. And I'm going to take advantage of this round hole in the middle of the gusset. And I'm simply going to screw 2 gussets onto each connector plate. Connector nut, sorry. Without dropping it. Like so. And I'm going to sit that on the base plate. Set another one up over here, and then lay on the actual fixture plates and tack it all together. These provide the spacing. They keep these gussets held 90 degrees to the base plate and parallel to each other. So very, very easy setup. So let me get that all arranged. I scribed a line just a 1/4 inch off the edge of this plate. And I'm going to sit that gusset just inside of that on my little connector nut arrangement. I'm going to clamp it down. Now that I got it clamped down, I'm just going to take this hardware store bracket, which looks like an 1/8 inch thick, and just set it in the middle there. That's to keep the fixture plate off of the base. So I'm going to orient that like so, and then I'm going to bring this out 1.25 inches. So now I've got roughly 1 inch of overhang to clamp to when I'm welding stuff. Okay, and I'm going to tack this together, and this is going to set up everything else. Okay, now that that's tacked in place, this shows we can get a really good, accurate 90-degree angle there. Okay, we're not going to force anything here. We're just going to let our setup piece drive the location of everything else. So to set it up, I've got my little saddle made out of the 2 gussets. I'm going to slide my 1/8 inch hardware store spacer underneath it. I'm going to rest it on the angled shoulders of the gusset. I'm going to space these two 1/4 inch apart at the base, just with another piece of 1/4 inch plate. I'm going to take my high-tech straight edge here, my Simpson strong tie connecting strap, and align these 2 edges like so. Okay, now that elevates the clamping surface, this spaces the clamping surface, and the 45s on the gussets get the angularity correct. So let me just double check my angle. That looks right on the money. Now using another hardware store bracket, I'm positioning the second clamping plate. Yep, she looks righteous. Okay, now you can see that the bottom corner of whatever you're welding together is in space, just under the weld. So if you do overly penetrate, like if you're welding a piece of sheet metal and you overly penetrate, you don't weld it to the fixture. You'll be in space. Plus it helps to concentrate the heat if you're torch welding. Extreme close-up, you can see that the 2 pieces of sheet metal are just touching each other, and you can weld right down in this crack. So, and that's at 90 degrees, and it's easy to clamp in place. So I moved over to the weld table. Now I'm just gonna finish weld this. So I'll stand it up, cock it in one of the T-slots, and then finish weld all these joints. And I'm gonna move around to keep the heat distributed. extreme close-up here. So there's our fixture. And here's my Starrett 4-inch machinist square. And it fits in there pretty good. I can't see any light coming underneath it. Okay, so now I'm just gonna knock some of this mill scale off and sand it and smooth it. There it is, all sanded and knocked all the mill scale off and shined it up a little bit. That's as far as I'm going to go. This thing's going to obviously have a rough life, so I'll throw a little PB blaster on it or something just to keep the rust down. But okay, now let's do the outside corner jig. For the outside fixture, here's the fixins. I'm going to use my little saddle strategy with the gussets. 2 pieces of the same 1/4 inch by 4 inch strap. A couple little pieces of 1/4 inch offcut is a good reason not to throw away your little bits and pieces. And then over here, I've got a piece of 3-inch angle in the big welt. So I'll do the setup now. To set this up, I'm going to take the 2 pieces of strap, lay them in the bottom of the angle, and then space them apart with the 2 little bitty pieces of 1/4 inch offcut. Then I'm going to align the ends using one of the hardware store brackets. Highly precise here. Then I'm going to lay in my saddle, center it, and tack it in place. There's my machinist square. And that's about as good as you get. Okay, I'll make the stanchion for it. For the stanchions, I've got these 2 little hardware store angle brackets that I stripped all the powder coating off, except that one, and reamed out the holes to 3/8 and rounded the ends of them. So they will align to those holes and allow me to tilt the fixture. So to mount it, I'm gonna plug weld them like so. I'm gonna put the connector bolt back in, take these button head screws and attach them like so. There's my assembly with the adjustable pieces. So to mount it now, I'm going to mark a line down the middle of my base plate using my partially melted Sharpie. And then I will offset it so that this foot is at the edge, so I can clamp this down to the weld table or a bench easily without getting in the way of the fixture. Okay, works pretty nice. All right, I'm going to take this apart and finish weld all of it. Here she is assembled and finish welded, and even grounded a little bit just to dress up the welds a little bit. Okay, there's the two of them. Now I will demonstrate them. Here's our two pieces of sheet metal, just a couple pieces of rusty junk I found on the train tracks. I'm going to fillet weld right in here. Extreme close-up here, looking right down the barrel of the jig. And there's our joint, two pieces of sheet metal. And I'm going to fillet weld in here. Now you saw I blew a hole in it right at the end there, but watch this. It's not stuck to the fixture. Now if I had blown that hole in it and this was a closed angle, I'd have welded that sheet metal to the fixture and I'd be fighting with it right now. Okay, next extreme close-up. You can see our joint right here. And you can see how the two pieces of sheet metal just touching the corner. And I'm going to weld on here. Now the reasons for aligning the joint like that, like I just showed, is that when it's done you can grind off this and grind off this, and you're not grinding away parent metal and you're not grinding away the weld. Okay, there's the outside weld. Now I can switch back to this fixture and weld the inside. And here we are. So there's our outside weld. I did a second one. Here's the first outside weld. And on both of them, you can see I just cleaned them up a little bit with a grinder, with a sanding disc on it, an angle grinder. And you got a nice crisp corner. And there's the inside weld. And again, I cleaned it up a little bit with a sandpaper cone. And you know, you could take your time with that and really, you could make that disappear. You can obviously see the toe of my weld in there, and I over sanded it a little bit. And out here, you know, there was a goof in the sheet metal. There's a hole there, but you get the idea. You could spend your time, and you know, if you're using nice sheet metal instead of this rusty junk that I'm using, you could make that joint disappear. You'd never know it was there. Same on the inside. You could make that disappear. You would never know it's there. I went ahead and just threw down another quickie inside joint. I didn't even do the outside, but just on another piece of scrap, and not the world's most beautiful weld for sure, but this thing is strong. I mean, it was super easy to lay down, even on this junk material. And that is a really strong weld. I could beat on that with a hammer, and the sheet metal would just fold. Well, I'm going to leave this one here. I'd say mission accomplished. These babies are going into service, and it's on to the next project. I will see you there and then.